All right, today's show. Ooh, I'm excited about this show. As you can probably tell, all the podcast equipment you need. There's something amazing shift that happened. And I talked about this again on the aforementioned episode yesterday when I was interviewed by James Oliver Jr. Again, thanks for having me on my show, on your show, and for sharing the episode with my viewers too. I appreciate that. But we got into this discussion about how things are different now. And the big shift happened probably about, 5 years ago. You can correct me in the comments. About 5 years ago when Joe Rogan, who is now probably the number one podcaster in the world and has been for several years, when he got a serious bag, I think it was 8 figures, from Spotify to exclusively do podcasts for their network. I think it's ended by now, but it was a big deal at the time. You had Joe Budden, and if you're in the hip hop communities, you're familiar with him. I've been following his work. All these different things are happening at the exact same time. Charlemagne, like all these different things are happening at the exact same time. And what occurred was that podcasting, number one, became a lucrative business, at least for a handful of folks. I know sometimes it doesn't quite work out, but also there were more people than ever that are interested in podcasting. And it's important because I know folks, and some of you are probably watching, who have mentored me or who I've talked to, who have had podcasts for 10, even 20 years, some of y'all. What y'all understand and what we all need to understand is that this second wave of podcasting isn't just audio, it's also video. So again, you have the Joe Rogans, you have the Tim Ferrisses, there's a lot of people in mind, again, back to Joe Budden, where they'll have a podcast, Rick Roll, they'll have a podcast, and then they'll also have the video to it too. And so that's why when I'm talking about the podcast equipment you need, I'm going to be talking about lighting, but I'm also going to be talking about mics. I'm going to be talking about a few other things, because a lot of the podcasts we're doing today, if you want to consider BringYourWorth.tv a podcast, it has a video element of it. So stuff I'm talking about today will absolutely impact you as an audio podcast, if that's what you want to focus on. And also I'm giving game if you want to do the audio and you also want to do the video, which again is kind of the wave right now. And so, there's a lot of stuff to cover. So let's get into it. Okay, the first thing you need to get right is your sound. Your sound is really important. Hopefully you can hear me now. Your sound is really important. I've talked about this quite a bit as far as sound. Sorry, I forgot to put my question in there. How do you put your audio together? How do you get your sound together? For me, it begins with the mic. I like this mic a lot. I mentioned it in some of the earlier episodes. Sorry for the louder sound here. This is, I want to make sure I get the name right because it is a complicated. Audio Technica ATR 2100X USB. All the links are below and all that good stuff. So you don't need to write it down. All the information is below. If you're watching on Amazon, it'll be highlighted on the side if you want to grab the product. What I love about this, and again, I mentioned in the episode a couple of days ago, is that it actually is really good at pinpointing where the audio is coming from and isolating everything else. Sounds super simple, but it's not. I've had a couple mics, in fact, some of them that I mentioned on the show. Again, we're approaching 3 years of the show, so my mics have evolved. So you see some of the earlier shows, and sometimes my mics won't quite sound right, or we started in right at the beginning of the pandemic, so sometimes my kids would run in the room, not exaggerating. Check out the earlier episodes. My kids would run in the room because we were homeschooling, obviously, and then the noise will be coming from them, and you hear my 2 boys fighting or something. That doesn't, not only are they older, so they're not here, but that doesn't happen as much, I found, with this mic. It has a great sense of focus. It's called, I always screw up the name of it. I want to say Cardio. I'm always going to mess up the name of it, but it's a fantastic setup here. In fact, I believe I have the box around here. If I can't find the box, then I'll go ahead and you can click on the link, get the details. I know my tech, actually minored in computer science, but this is one of those areas where what I will say though is that it uses a certain technology that will pinpoint exactly where you're coming from and isolate the rest of it. All you audiophiles know exactly what I'm trying to say, but For those that don't know what I'm trying to say, just click on the link. It gets into the details. It begins with a C, but it's a certain way of focusing the audio to your mouth, which is super valuable, particularly when it comes to audio podcasts. This is an important point. If you're watching Bring Your Worth TV, or if you're doing a video/audio podcast, you have an advantage. If my audio is a little bit off, or if it's a little bit muffled, or again, if my little kids run in the room, you can see my very New Jersey hands, which are always flying all over the place. But you can also see my facial expression. There's stimulation here. It's a different vibe. If you're doing audio only podcasts, you got to make sure, again, let me show you the mic. You got to make sure this stuff is straight, because you're not going to have the companion piece. You're not going to have the multimedia part of it. So if you're looking to launch a podcast and it's going to be audio only for the beginning or for the foreseeable future, double down, pay the money for a good mic. This mic is under $100 as of this recording. I think it was in the $75 range, which is actually cheaper than some of the, frankly, less reliable mics I got in the past. So it's not necessarily about the price you pay, but if it is a good mic, it's worth the price. Particularly, again, if you're going audio only. Another thing I'd recommend, which if you're a regular of the show, you're like, what is this thing behind Damon's head? This is soundproofing. Now, depending on the type of podcast you want to do and like your budget, I know some folks that will rent a studio and knock out like 4 podcasts in a day and they get their money back, and sponsorships, whole different discussion. Maybe I'll do a live about that in the future. My point is that some of us are doing it literally here. Like, this is my office, this is my home, this is where I live. And so right to the side of me, to the left of me, is my office closet. And if you buy any of the later Bring Your Worth books, particularly like Built From Now, which was a book that came out, I think the deluxe version came out about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It's also, again, included in the complete Bring Your Worth collection. The audiobook will be coming soon. But all the later books were recorded right there in my closet. If you're going to have this kind of setup where it's in your closet and you have relatives at home, right? Like little kids or whatever the case may be, and you're not alone, or even if you're like, we live right off the strip in Las Vegas, so it's like, well, not right off the strip, but you know what I mean? There's noise. That's what I'm trying to say. And this works really well. What it does not do is keep all the noises from coming in, based on what an engineer told me. What it does do is make sure your voices don't leak out, if that makes sense. So it's not, it won't completely quiet all the noise from the outside, but it will make sure your voice doesn't leave wherever you're recording from, which is just as powerful. And if we don't have these things set up, again, in my little closet here, if we don't have these kind of things set up, then our voice will, I would call it like leaking. Our voice will leak. And so it won't be as powerful. So we could have the best mic in the world, but then if our voice is leaking all over the house, then the voice is going to sound like this, and it's not going to work out. These are extremely affordable. This edition that I have does not exist anymore. It's out of print until I'm used to publishing. It's out of stock, or I think they might have just discontinued it. These work great. The link that you have below is actually for the newfangled ones. Are actually pyramid design, which, as you can picture it, is little pyramids over here. You know what I mean? So check those out if you're going to be recording at home. I know folks that have fantastic podcasts with sponsorships and they're making money with it and all that, and they will literally record it in like a hotel room or like their closet or in their basement, and they'll just set it up wherever it is. Not so much a hotel room, but they'll set it up wherever it is, and they'll go from there. And that's such an important thing. If you're going to take your podcasting seriously, you don't want to waste your time with that. Also, I use these, like I said, for the audiobooks, but also for some of the audio programs that I've done elsewhere too. It's worked out really well. Again, I can't recommend it enough. If you're trying to stick stuff on the wall, I would recommend using the, I do not have a link for it in there, but you guys can figure it out. I think it's 3M the double-sided Velcro. So it's like one side is sticky, just like a tape. The other side is sticky like a tape. You put it on the wall, and then this part is Velcro. So I took this straight from my closet. I just peeled it off. So for me to show it to y'all, I didn't have to and we own this home, so I mean, we can tear it up technically, but we didn't have to tear up the walls or anything. I just peeled it off. And so that's excellent, again, as far as if you want to upgrade and so forth. Heck, after this conversation, I might even upgrade to the new pyramid style, since that seems to be the new wave. So be sure and check that out. Hopefully that'll help you guys get to where you need to go. The last one, I mentioned it a few times. They are not an official sponsor, but they might as well be. Throat coat. You gotta take care of your voice. The only reason why I actually have some semblance of a voice after doing lines for y'all for going on 3 weeks straight is because of this. It's actually medicinal. It tastes pretty bitter. My kids have had it when they've had sore throats, they've had a hard time with it. But if you like bitter stuff, you'll be able to get over it. It works really well. As the name says, it coats your throat. And as I've talked about, they're professional performers, like singers and so forth, professional speakers, and particularly the voice actors that I connected with when I was doing my professional work for my last book, Career Remix. I went to a professional studio in downtown Vegas. That's where I learned about this. And I mentioned it to other professional performers, and they're like, of course. And I'm mad at them because they didn't tell me about this secret. I'm trying to share it with you now. That's why I'm mentioning it so much, because it's been a lifesaver. Without this, I wouldn't be talking right now. So super affordable. The links are all below. All right, so we're talking about the best podcast audio equipment to get you going in 2024. If you have any particular questions, be sure and throw them in the comments, or if you want me to go deeper into any piece of equipment. All right, so how do I get my lighting together? This is an ongoing process for me. Give a shout in the comments if it is for you, because lighting can be tough, particularly if you're a person of color. And so you have to get the lighting just right, or otherwise you'll get washed out, or people frankly won't be able to see you. And I'm wearing glasses. You can see a little bit of reflection, but it's way better than it used to be. Go back to Bring Your Worth episode 1. As they say, if your old work isn't embarrassing, then you're not doing it right. So I must be doing great, because that stuff is embarrassing. But again, I'm here to show the progress, not the perfection. But as you upgrade your lighting, you'll see how much better it is over time. I'm trying to give you the hack, the tool of stuff that's worked really well for me, so that you guys can get to the next level a little bit faster and get some of the advice that I wish I got earlier. All right, so the first part is the Amarin. I can never pronounce that. Amarin Aperture. Man, that's a tongue twister. Amarin Aperture. This is, I wouldn't call it necessarily OG, but it's definitely what the experts talk about. It comes in a case like this. Very Pulp Fiction. Comes in a case like this. And I'm going to show you the whole thing in a second. But it comes in a case like this. And basically, the aperture, and y'all that are like really into cinematography, what I'm going to say is going to be really basic. I'm sure you know a lot more. What the aperture does is it's a light source. So the light that you see coming down on me, which I'm about to show y'all, about to get a live view in a second, that's actually coming from this box. The box is about this big, so about this cubed. So it's about 4 of these together, 2 by 2. It gets really hot, and you can actually control the how intense it is by a percentage point. So you can get it down to like 50% or get it all the way up to 100%. I'll show y'all in a second. Highly recommend this. This one ran about 150 as of this time of recording, which is decent. You can go all out with these kinds of things. Just to give some context, everything that I'm mentioning here, you can probably get this whole setup for between $400 and $500. And I've gotten it over time, so it wasn't a big issue for me. But if you want to kind of dive in, you're like, Damon, that's what I want. That's about how much it's going to run you. No more than $500. If you think about it like you starting a podcast or starting a video podcast, and it could bring in sponsorship, depending on where you're at and how you do it. You can bring in advertisers. You can even bring in clients, as I do as a business coach or as a public speaker. then that $500 investment is relatively small if you can get a $500, $5,000, or even more gig from it. Something to keep in mind, particularly if you have books coming out. It could be a really good time to support your book with content related to it. And again, I'm going to show you guys all this because it's all together, but let me go and get through this 3-part list to let you know what's happening. Then it's the Lantern softbox. I didn't know what a softbox was, I'm going to be honest with y'all. But if you're a photographer, you already know the vibe. A softbox is basically like a big balloon. So if you have this really intense light, in this case from the Amarin, which again, you see on my complexion, you see on my face, you have this really intense light. If you just beam the light on yourself, not only could you hurt your ocular sockets, which has happened, but also too, it's going to be too harsh. The softbox is kind of like the name implies, it's like a big balloon. And it's a big balloon, it blows up, it makes a whole bunch of noise, but it blows up really quickly. I'll show you, in fact, I can show you the device right now. You plug this into the wall, and then you plug this into the softbox. The softbox is like a big balloon. Again, I'll show you all in a second. And then you blow it up, and then you click it on. And once you click it on, you have the aperture that's bringing the light, but then you have the softbox that's diffusing the light. And so it makes it spread. So that's why, James over here and John over here and my books, there are like buildings, but the books in the back, that's why they're set up in a certain way. That's why they have the glow on them. That's why they don't look like they're in the shadows. That's part of the softbox. Otherwise, the light would just be one laser beam and only be hitting me. The last thing, which funny enough, I didn't know this part, but nobody told me, is that you actually need a tripod. And so you're going to see some of my older lights. I have an older ring light. In fact, it's a newer light, NEEWER, which worked fine in the beginning, but I had some issues with it later. It's a fine product. It just wasn't my thing. You'll see some of my older lights here. And the older lights actually have their own stand. Once you start to get into the professional mode, which is when you're talking about apertures and soft boxes, let me get this out of my hand before it flies out. Soft boxes, told you I talk with my hands, right? Soft boxes and so forth. Then everything is separate. Just like if you buy a camera, once you get beyond the brownie cameras or the click and shoot cameras, you got to get your own lens. But nobody really says that. That's why I'm trying to break it down to y'all, where it's like, I got this stuff and I was like, oh, wait, how do I put this up? Now I got a softbox and an aperture on the floor. What am I supposed to do with this? It's like, oh, I need a tripod. Luckily, I was able to overnight a tripod. It was super affordable. I happen to have a link in there for a cheaper one. I don't think it's any more than $20, maybe 30. Really affordable compared to the other stuff that we're talking about. Or you can use your own tripod if you're already in the photographer mode. All right. We're going to go ahead and take a quick tour because that is required to break it down for y'all. So let me go and take the mic. There we go. And then we're going to see the old one. There's the old newer one. I know it's called newer, NEEWER. So that's the old one right there. And here is the softbox. So the softbox, again, I forget the brand it is, but it's in the notes in the chat right there. I blow this up. You see the blow up right there with the little device that you saw before. Now my kids are in soccer and other things, so if you play sports, particularly for the sports, particularly soccer, I think there's some other sports too, you're used to blowing up the ball. It's the same type of thing, except again, it's pretty noisy, but it works in like 15 seconds. You blow it up, you connect it right there. Here's an important part of it. On this part, which you might not be able to see that well, so forgive me for that. But in this general area, let's back up a little bit. You see the power supply. It'll probably be on your right. And you see a knob. That knob actually controls how hot it goes. So I'm going to put down the mic and then you can see for yourself. Hold on one second. So hopefully you caught it on the camera. It's very subtle. And then over here, hopefully you can see it. There's a little percentage, and that digital dial says it's probably at 100%. So you can adjust that to whatever percentage you need it to be to set it up correctly for whatever type of picture you need. And that's super helpful, because for the other lights that I talked about, then there wasn't really that adjustment factor, because then it would be like it's either going to be up really high or really low, and you're either going to be sweating in here or you're not going to be able to see anybody at all. This works really well with the combination that I have. I will keep y'all posted. I just upgraded it earlier in the summer. In fact, one of my kids broke one of my lights, which is one of the reasons for the upgrade. But as they say, sometimes necessity is it's not the root of all evil, but it's mother of invention. That's what it is. I was like, it's not the root of all evil. Again, help me in the chat. I'm struggling today. But hopefully that gives y'all some insight as far as how my setup is set up. And then if you're ready to go ahead and let me highlight it for y'all on Amazon as well. All right, so as of this recording in September 2023, then the aperture, which is the light, think light when you hear aperture, but the light source, it's just under $200. And then the lantern softbox, which is the balloon that diffuses the light, that's running under 100. Let's just say under 100. And again, the what's it called? The tripod is relatively affordable. In fact, the link that I have right here, number one, there's a deal on it right now, like as of this recording. So if you want to hop on it, you can check it out. Again, I'm trying to make sure that you stay on budget and whatever you're trying to do, no matter how many resources you got. You know what I mean? That's kind of the key to side hustling or creating. You make sure you stay in budget, no matter how many resources you got. But then the deal right now, which again, I clicked on there, or I put the link in there, it's actually 2 of these for the normal price. So I have extra one right here. And obviously you saw the one being used. That's about, 6-7 feet up in the air. And it's worked out really well. Be sure to throw any questions or comments that you have as far as with how it's set up, how it works. If there's anything I missed, please don't be shy. Let me know how I can support. All right, so that's getting your lighting together. We already talked about getting your audio together. And again, we're talking about the podcast equipment you need, video or otherwise, to go ahead and start in this upcoming year. And even if you're watching this in some of the replays, that's okay too. Go ahead and check in, see what's happening. And some of this equipment will get upgraded. I think the key thing when it comes to any type of technology is to worry less about the piece of equipment and worry more about the brand and how reliable they are. So I happen to rock with Apple. I know Apple does really good products. So whenever I get my next Apple phone, I'm not worried about the phone as much, but more about if the company's going to be around, if they make good product, and if they're going to support the product after I buy it. And the stuff that I'm mentioning here, so far so good. And they actually came on the recommendation of other experts that I really rely on and trust, people that are on a much higher echelon, podcast wise and otherwise, than me. So that's why I wanted to pass it on to y'all. Because it's like, oh no, these are what the masters, these are the people that are on top of their game are using. And so as you get involved in video or audio podcasting, you definitely want to lean on the folks that are already there. All the podcast software you need. There's a little bit of overlap here. And what occurred is that I went ahead and did the podcast equipment episode. A lot of great feedback on it. Thank y'all that came through. And then I realized that there was a whole other half of it. So I tagged a couple software things on Tuesday's episode. Again, you check it out. But I realized I didn't go deep enough, at least based on the feedback that I was getting from y'all as far as saying, oh, I really need this episode. And I'm like, well, I went over all the equipment, but podcasting is so software oriented now. Let me make sure that you are covered on that. And so that's what we're going to do today. Look at it as a companion piece, an addendum, or a part 2 to what we talked about on Tuesday. Again, don't forget about the link right there. Definitely want to go back and watch part 1. Excuse me. You can tell it just rained here in Vegas because, man, it is allergy season for sure. All right. How do I record my podcast? It sounds super basic, but you can have all this great equipment. At least I think it's great equipment, all this stuff. And you're like, wait, how do I actually record the thing? How does that work? And we touched on it very briefly a couple days ago, but I want to make sure that you guys get the insight that you need as much as possible. For your audio podcast, I cannot recommend enough riverside.fm. How it works is that, number one, it's based completely in the website. So I've been a guest on dozens of podcasts, probably more than that at this point, but many, many different podcasts. I can tell the difference between the earlier days before Riverside, before people started really rocking with Riverside, and now. Now when I get a request or I ask to be on a podcast, they're like, great, here's the link. I click on the link, they make sure my mic is right, and we're off to the races. Back in the day, and you old school and OG podcasters know, back in the day, it was a process. Sometimes the people that you were podcasting with had to get their own individual thing, and you had to make sure their mic was right, but you couldn't do that because you were remote. Riverside FM takes care of that. The first thing it does is that it's completely within the website. So I usually use Chrome, so Google Chrome to do it. It does not work with Safari, which is my favorite browser. No endorsement, just happens to be what I like. And so it doesn't work that well with Safari, which is kind of standard with the Apple computers, which is what I tend to lean towards. It works really well with Google Chrome. I believe it works with Opera as well, which is my second choice for a web browser. But you click on there, you give that link to whoever you're going to have on your podcast, and then you're good to go. So that's one. This sounds simple, but it can get really complex. The people that you're having on your podcast show don't need to call in a phone number and all that. They can do it right on their computer with the mic. Fantastic. Again, I've been on both sides of that. The second thing is that it separates all the audio. And so if my mic sounds just okay, and then you as a podcast host, your mic is like a professional mic, like one of those $1,000 joints, then if it was all recorded in one audio take, there's no way you could fix my audio because it's tied to your audio. So if my audio was low and yours was super, even normal, if you turn up my audio, your audio is going to be jacked up. And of course, vice versa. Riverside works really well because it separates all the audio, and if I'm terming it correctly, it records them locally. Now, not actually on the person that you're interviewing, not on their computer locally, but as a local file. That's saved, and then as a podcast host, you get access to all of it. And so if there's background noise, there's always construction happening here in Vegas. So if there's background noise or other stuff happening, then you're able to push that out, but then you're also able to keep the power of your own audio. Again, like you hear I'm getting closer now, those things can really affect how a podcast sounds. If you're having a challenge with those particular types of things, it's really hard to fix them, what they call post-production. It's really hard to do that. Riverside actually helps a lot with that, where it separates those things out. And now I think they also have, I just was reading, they have AI functions that allow you to separate different sounds. So again, if there's construction, I don't live that far from the strip, there's always construction in that general area. So if there's noise outside of my office, then you might be able to adjust those levels, again, without jacking up the entire audio track, which includes other people that are in your podcast. Really, really important stuff. This is a special link. I think you guys get a month or two free, something like that, but there is a bonus involved in it. Be sure and check it out if you're looking to focus on the audio side of podcasting. Again, on the audio side, that means you don't have video involved in it. If you're going to be doing the more modern wave, where with the aforementioned ones, with Earn Your Leisure or Rich Roll and other folks like that, obviously Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss, Joe Budden, shout out to him. If you're doing that, that means you're also going to have a video component. And when a lot of the podcasts that you know of the most now that are doing quote unquote really well, or they have a name brand, They usually are doing the audio and they're connected with Spotify or, Audible has podcasts now. Apple, I think, has some exclusive podcasts. ACX, which I think is connected to Audible, has some, it just keeps going and going. That's fine. The new wave, though, and I'd say, and I talk about this again, I'll throw it back up here with the great conversation I had with James Oliver. I talk all about this. So be sure and check out the link if you want to go deeper into this, because we have a great 5-10 minute conversation just about this. A lot of the podcasters who were just audio before are now doing video. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it's just literally a camera recording you and then whomever your guest is. You can get as fancy as you want. You can do editing and all that other stuff. So in some ways, the Bring Your Worth.tv, this show is a podcast. This was not my intention. My intention was to create a TV show. I think I have. But with so many formats of the modern podcasting going into video, this has turned into almost like a video podcast. Again, like I talked about, particularly with these live shows, where if you guys have questions, throw them in right now. It's live. Like there's questions right here. I am here in the flesh. That energy is different than a recorded show. StreamYard is my favorite option at this moment for doing live streaming. In fact, I'm using, to get meta for a second, not Zuckerberg, but meta as in the, the dictionary definition. I'm actually using StreamYard right now to talk to you right now. It works out really well. The basic format will get you to a couple different platforms. It's, once you understand the system, it's relatively easy to stream your stuff. And there's different ways that you can adjust the levels and even bring guests in. I think with the basic program, you can bring like 8 guests in, which, as I said the other day, unless you're bringing in Wu-Tang, you're probably not going to need eight mics. But if you need them, I think it's like 4 to 8 mics you can put in just in the basic plan. What I love about StreamYard and why I work with StreamYard, as well as the next platform I'm going to talk about. Next platform is called Restream. If you wanted some other options, we'll talk about that in a moment. Is that you can stream once and then give it to a bunch of different places. So I'm talking to you right now. I think I talked about that at the top of the show. Right now, this is streaming live to bringyourworth.tv, which the current hub is at youtube.com/BrownDamon. So it's going to YouTube Live. It's going to my LinkedIn page. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, or if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, there'll be a live button. It's going there too. And then shout out to y'all over on Amazon, which I'm connecting y'all through my iPad I got on the side here. And so you can put comments in there. It's all streaming through StreamYard. So if you're used to saying, I'm going to go live on this platform, and that's all I'm going to do, you have options now. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but Facebook Live is an option. I'm not as active on Instagram anymore. The Instagram Live, I believe, is an option now. I think they're working on getting TikTok Live as an option. And so the days of you saying, I'm going to go live on Instagram, let me do that, and then maybe I'll go live on Facebook later, those days are coming to a close. StreamYard is part of that wave. Definitely check it out. There's another link where you have some type of bonus involved. I try not to get too committal on those things because those things change all the time, but there's definitely a bonus involved for y'all if you click on there and you want to check it out. The second option when it comes to live broadcasts, again, if you're doing less of the recorded podcasts, even though it does work with recorded podcasts, I'm going to be clear about that. You can pre-record these things. There's a conversation I had with Jonathan Fields, shout out to you, who did the book Sparked over here. And there's a live conversation I have with Cal Newport, who did the excellent book, A World Without Email. And he's known for the book Deep Focus. All those links are available at bringyourworth.tv. You'll see the search for it. All those conversations were done through some format of StreamYard and or recording. So you can actually pre-record things too. If it's, again, I respect Cal as well as Jonathan a lot. So I didn't want to have them on live and then like the interview go crazy. I wanted to make sure that the interview was solid. Let's have a conversation and then, and then I'll go ahead and edit it as we need to edit it. You can do that within both these platforms too. Another option is Restream. So we have StreamYard and we have Restream. These are the two leaders in this space. That's why I'm recommending them. Restream is very, very similar. One of the advantages of Restream, though, is that they're way more generous, I found, with their basic platform, basic plan, basic as in free. So some of the things that are behind the wall for StreamYard, and I'm pro StreamYard as far as like, not that I'm pro StreamYard, but I'm actually part of their professional plan. So I already pay for it anyway, so I don't see that. But if you're new to things, so starting out with Restream is fine too, because there's certain things that are behind the wall for StreamYard that I pay for that are actually free with Restream. I think it has to do with the amount of platforms you go to at once. For StreamYard, I think you can do 2 platforms at once for free. And I think for Restream, as of this recording, I think you can do 4 or 5 platforms. So let's say you wanted to be on Amazon Live, which you guys should check out. Maybe I'll do a future episode about the opportunities with Amazon Live. You could be on Amazon Live. You could be on, let's say, TikTok. You could be on Instagram. You could be on Facebook. And you could be on LinkedIn. If you need to be on multiple platforms at once, like a lot of them, then Restream, as far as a bargain, might be the way to start. The platforms are very similar. Shout out to Anya over at Restream and Gage over at StreamYard. They both have been excellent with their customer service. I've talked with a couple of them. They're great. They're great. You can't go wrong with either one. Hopefully that gets y'all to the next level. Excuse me. We're talking about the best podcast software. What are y'all curious about? What are you guys kind of dealing with? What are kind of the challenges as far as with software and things of that nature when it comes to getting your podcast off the ground? How can I get you guys prepared to have a successful podcast in the upcoming year? Drop a line below. Let me know any questions that you got as far as a podcast. This question is really important, and I think we tend to, when we're starting a podcast, we tend to underestimate that. How do I find the best parts of my podcast to share? So we're in this particular phase of connecting with people where, yes, you have the 2-hour podcast. Like I said, I just did a live marathon that was 9 hours long a couple weeks ago, et cetera, et cetera. But the main way that people are going to find your podcast, whether you like it or not, are through snippets. It could be a short viral video, and it's like, oh, I need to hear the rest of that podcast. It could be a clip that has a lot of commentary, and it could be just, 40, 45-minute clip if it's a very long podcast. Excuse me. Or it could be a 5-minute clip. If you go to bringyourworth.tv, you'll see I have bringyourworth.tv clips now, where there are clips, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 15-minute segments from these longer form things that I'm doing. That's all part of the energy. That's all part of the wave right now. So if you could have like a 3-hour podcast with someone that you think is amazing, and there could be 5 or 6 really strong nuggets in there that you really want to share. How do you find those nuggets? How do you share those nuggets? That's really important if you're going to be making your podcast do well in the upcoming year. This one literally just came out this morning. I was getting ready for today's broadcast, and then YouTube dropped a message, and they're like, "Hey, we have a new app." So if you're on YouTube, as I am, that's important to you. The new app is called YouTube Create. Breaking news. If I had a breaking news thing, it'd be flashing all over. I have 2 degrees in journalism. I try to avoid the ambulance chasing. If it bleeds, it leads. So that's why it is a very mellow show. Listen, this is what it does. It's a free app. It's Android only, of course, because YouTube is owned by Google. Google is Android. It's not available for us iPhone users yet. Sorry. But it's fresh off the press. I have the link literally right there if you want to download it, if you're on the Android. It is very, very similar to CapCut. It's similar to InShot, which I'll give a link to in a second, or all the links are below if you don't have the patience for that. It's similar to that, except it's free, and it's from YouTube, and it's built literally to make YouTube shorts. If you want to learn more about it, they have a demo that's available. Again, I have an iPhone, so I couldn't demo it, but they demo it for you. Click the link below. You can learn more about it. Again, the video with the demo just came out 2 hours ago as I was getting ready for this. And so be sure to check it out. There's so many different ways that you can edit and play with your clips from your podcast. Don't sleep on that, because there's so many great podcasts that I didn't know about until I saw one of their visual clips on YouTube. Or even, I'll give you another example. Some of my audio work, including some of my audiobooks, like The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, which is the first book in the Bring Your Worth series, again, available in the complete Bring Your Worth collection. I would take the audio from it and I would add visuals, whether it was GIFs, animated GIFs, or as some of y'all know, I took the Bite-Sized Entrepreneur and added AI visuals to it. Again, all that's available at bringyourworth.tv for free. Be sure to check it out. You can go ahead and do that. And that's a way of taking the audio and then sharing it on a visual medium. So if you want to expand your audience and you want to connect with the video platforms like YouTube, like Instagram, like whatever happens to be hot when you're watching this right now, it doesn't mean that you have to have a camera in front of your face like I do. It also could mean you taking the audio and then adding visuals to it post-production. This will help with that. As I mentioned, my favorite one is called InShot. The free program works extremely well. I think it's available on both platforms. I use it on iPhone, obviously, like I've been talking about, but I think it's also available on Android as well. At least it should be. It's been out for probably about 2-3 years. I started using it around the time I started the show. We're going on our 3rd anniversary. It works really well because you can take these big clips, like say 5-hour podcasts or whatever you're doing, get them on the phone, and then set the format. So just to be clear, YouTube Create, give you a link there. YouTube Create is focused on basically shorts. That means the traditional vertical, right? I'm holding them. I'm using my phone, but I would hold it, but you know what I mean. It's vertical. The first 250 episodes of BringYourWorth.tv that you watch were made in InShot. In other words, it works great for shorts, but also works great for the traditional horizontal. I forget the dimensions. If you remember the dimensions, feel free to put for you deeper tech files than I am. Be sure and feel free to put them in the comments. But whatever dimensions they are, almost like a television, it works really well. And so it works good for that. And so even if you see, I'm thinking of like Colin and Samir, which is a very popular podcast where they talk to video creators, particularly YouTubers on YouTube. You can just Google Colin and Samir in YouTube and find them. They're really easy to find. They have like 1 million subscribers now. Shout out to them. But when you see their stuff, it's in traditional format. They could do their stuff in InShot. Works out really well for the free program. I had the free program for a while. If you want the better aspects of it though, it's super cheap. I want to say their annual plan is maybe $20, maybe $25, and I believe it's annual. It might not even be annual anymore. It's so low cost, I don't even think about it. I just buy it, and it's fantastic. It works out really well. I'm starting to play with other programs now that my videos are getting a lot bigger. And if you've seen the recent videos like freelancer, are you a freelancer or are you an entrepreneur? Or the video that I did about Jay-Z, Prince, and Michael Jackson, and their 3 very different ways of conquering the music industry. Again, all available at bringyourworth.tv. You'll see the production's a lot higher. Certain things for InShot, it will get overwhelmed with it. And I started to find that with some of my later, more complex videos. But if you're doing clips from podcasts and so forth, and your earlier stuff, it'll work out great. This is where it gets fun. So you're like, Damon, I had like a 2-hour interview with somebody, or you're similar to me where it's like, oh yeah, I did like a 2-hour live show, whatever. I don't know which parts are good. I don't know. I'm a little bit overwhelmed by the whole process. I'm not sure what to do. AI can actually help with that. As I used to say back in my day, there's an app for that. My 2 favorite apps for finding clips. Again, this is episode 350. So I get it. I must have thousands of hours worth of content right now. which are the joints that I should turn into clips? Which are the ones that I should share? Which ones should I turn into clips and they can be their own individual episodes? This helps with that. Opus Pro works like this. I'm gonna go and do a quick demo for you guys, so hold on to your seatbelts. All right, give a shout if you can see it. All right, so Opus Pro works like this. It uses AI to find the best parts in the conversations that you have. Now, a lot of my stuff is solo, but if you go to bringyourworth.tv, and I can throw a link in there, my latest short was a conversation with me and James, as I talked about on Monday, with how to bring your subscribers from 0 to where I'm at, which is in the tens of thousands. It will automatically figure out the juiciest parts of the conversation and then organize it for you in a particular way. So you go to Opus Clips. It's actually just opus.pro. And then it breaks down all the different ways that it works the best. And then you'll see some of my episodes, some of them did not work. But this one right here, hopefully you can see my cursor, learn how to go from 0 to 20K YouTube, right? Again, shout out to James for having me on. Click on this. And then what's this first one? This first one is the short that's on my bringyourworth.tv show right now. If you go to bringyourworth.tv and you go to shorts, it's the one right here. It gives a score, and then it gives an accurate view of the text. Give a shout in the chat or drop me a line if you want me to do something deeper with this. But I want to kind of give you guys the best insight. But wait, there's more. The key to TikTok success. This one is 38 seconds, score of 94. And then it breaks down exactly why that one is good or not good, etc. You notice that it also is automating the text, which is an even more powerful app to do that. So that's opus.pro. I ended up doing the trial a few months ago. I think it was top of the summer. I loved it. I think I talked about it on here once or twice. When I did the ASJ conference at the top of the summer, I just discovered it. I kept talking about it. I mentioned it, I think, during my keynote and then after the Q&A afterwards. I really love this work. It is fantastic. I so appreciate what they're doing over there. And it's just a fantastic product. And it's a great way for you to minimize the amount of stress that you have. Again, James and I had a half an hour conversation. I was able to plunk it in there. And then it said, hey, here are 8 different clips in order, ranked, why that will give the most bang for your buck and the most insight to the people you're trying to reach. And we're going to clip it up for you, and we're going to go ahead and do the subtitles for you so you don't have to worry about that. I cleaned it up a little bit. As you guys can probably tell, there's a little bit of stuff on there. That's where InShot will come in. I think I literally used InShot for it. You guys can see the final result over at bringyourworth.tv, which is a great place to be. In fact, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give y'all a direct link to it so I can stop playing around and talking about how it worked out. And I'll give you a link to how it worked out. Thank you for your patience. Technology. A few changes on that. All right. You guys should be good to go. All right. This is the secret to a successful podcast launch. You will see the final results there. And just excited to share that with y'all. All right, so that's Opus Pro. Get my big head back on there. All right, so that's Opus Pro. Link is right there. I removed the link, my fault. Link is right there. Great first option for it. The way that they charge, number one, it's a trial. So you can do the trial. The way that they charge, and you might have saw that, in fact, I'll pull this back up. You might see in the corner right there where it says credits. So they actually charge based on how long the video is. So for the conversation that James and I had, I think it was 29 minutes. So I used 29 minutes worth of credits, and then that got deducted from my account. If you use the link that I have here, I am an affiliate with them. So if you use the link I have here, that I think you get a month free, might be a week free at this point. Again, I try not to say those things because they change all the time with startups, but be sure and check them out. Run with it while you can. The key thing is that a lot of the tools that I'm sharing with you, again, Opus Pro, I just heard about it at the top of the summer. Now it's starting to become a standard. The next app that I'm going to show you just came out. I bought it immediately. I was like, yes, I need to subscribe. It's subscription based. I'm like, I need to subscribe. And it's totally the next wave. A lot of these things are going to become more commonplace. And so it's not a matter of saying, I'll try it later. It's like, no, if you actually want to have a current podcast, and if you want to promote it in a certain way so you can be, successful in 2024, you definitely want to check these out. Even if you don't use my affiliate link, doesn't matter to me. Just check it out. Again, if you're at the ASGA conference, you knew I was talking about Opus Pro the whole time. And now it's starting to get popular. Now a lot of other shorts platforms and podcast platforms are starting to use Opus Pro. You definitely want to make sure that your stuff is of that standard or higher if you're going to compete. There's one of those few areas where I'm like, no, the competition really matters. If you have me as a business coach, I usually don't talk about competition. There's one of those things where it's like, no, you want to care about competition with this one. This other one is amazing. Captions.ai, link below. I think it's available on all the platforms. Again, I have an iPhone, so I use it with the iPhone. It's been available, I think, for a matter of weeks. At least I've heard about it for the last 2-3 weeks. If you follow me on the Shorts channel, or if you subscribe to BringYourWorth.tv, you see the Shorts, you can tell that they've kind of leveled up. First with Opus Pro at the beginning of this summer, and now with Captions.ai. And I've coupled them that are doing really well, I think, because of this. Here's what Captions.ai does. Number one, it's just about shorts. So it's strictly things that I think under 2.5 minutes, something like that. No longer than 3 minutes. Don't quote me on that, but it's less than 3 minutes. I know that. That's number one. Number two, it automatically does the subtitles for you, which is fantastic. So it's not going to find the clips per se. You're going to be uploading clips and then working with them, right? So it's a little bit different than Opus Pro. Opus Pro will help you find the clips per se, but this one is different, where with the found clips, you can then add different languages, and you can also add different ways of doing your subtitles. Different languages is bizarre. I have 3 or 4 different languages that are spoken in my family. Some folks from India, some folks from Honduras, all over the place, folks are Puerto Rican. To be able to create a short and then have it be spoken in a different language is so different. Keep an eye on this spot because I am going to be experimenting with it. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, wait, hold on. So Bring Your Worth can be in Italian now? And my whole family rocks with Italy. It can be in Italian now, really? Oh my gosh. But on a much smaller scale and simpler scale. It's really good at getting the right captions and animating those captions. I've been talking enough. I'm going to let y'all see the latest one that I have. It's been doing really well on BringYourWorth.tv, but also doing really well, in fact, very, very well on my new TikTok at the Brown Damon. Let me go ahead and show you what I did. Big deal. Probably got several $7 million. Then recorded a few years ago. Beyonce actually got hired as a headliner for Coachella. Big deal. Probably got $7 million. Then recorded a special about her Coachella appearance. She gets the bag from that, as they say. So she got another 10 mil. 6 months or so later, she drops an album called Homecoming. So she's making money 3 ways from 1 2-hour appearance. So that's how you appear everywhere at once. Yeah, and so you compare that style of app to, say, the ones that are, or not app, that style of short, where I'm doing a podcast style. Compare that to, say, some of my earlier shorts, or maybe some of the shorts that you've seen with podcasts. It's a whole different level. The text is animated. I was able to split it so that Beyonce is dancing above my head. Shout out to Beyonce. And then I'm talking about her business moves below. And this is actually based on an older episode. For you guys that are OGs that have been subscribing for a while, this is actually based on, sorry, I got 20 things going at once here. Here we go. It's based on how Beyonce makes money off of money. That's the one at the bottom. And then the short itself is, this one move made Beyonce millions. Again, the shorts are available over at bringyourworth.tv, as is the long form episode. I forgot to put the link in there, but the link will be below when you see the replay of this. What you're able to do with captions essentially is add flavor and animation to the podcast or the work that you're already doing. Please check it out. Because number one, you can add that animation and that flavor to it. It's a totally different feel. And it wasn't that much more work than me putting the captions myself. AI has a purpose. Number two is that the language translation, you're going to be seeing a lot more of this. Mark my words. No pun intended. The automatic translation, the ability to have YouTube or whatever platform translate the language that you're saying, perhaps I'd say within the next 3 to 4 years in real time to the language of the person that you're speaking to. So if you're listening to me right now, by the time you watch this 3-4 years from now, I could be speaking to you in your native language. That's already starting to happen. It's available in captions.ai now, like right now. I've already been using it. Not sure what I'm going to do with it, but it's a powerful tool. Even if you decide not to use these particular tools, at least check them out so you know the direction that things are going. Such an important thing. If you guys have any questions or comments in regards to finding the best parts of the podcast to share, please plug them in below. And the final question that I've been getting a lot, and I think it's really important, is how do I increase my podcast reach? That rhymes. So my favorite tool for this, and I think some of y'all, I might have been on your podcast and you put me onto this. So shout out to y'all. Headliner. Headliner for the last few years has been one of my favorite platforms. Here's how it works. You go to Headliner app, link is right there. It's a referral link, so you get a bonus for there. Then you get a month free. You go there and you put in a link to your podcast. Your podcast usually has something called an RSS feed. Don't test me on what it says or what it stands for, because I'm way out of computer science now. But at one point I knew what it stood for. Again, you throw it in the comments if you remember. And so you put in the RSS, only 2 S's, RSS feed, you put it in there, and then it'll automatically start pulling in your podcast. Here's the thing. For all the podcast episodes, it will actually pull it in and then automatically start to format them so you can share them on the different platforms, whether it's social media like TikTok and Facebook, whatever, or if you actually want to have a standalone episode. When I appear on a podcast, I usually ask permission from the podcast host to take a snippet so I can share it with y'all, so y'all can learn more about what we were talking about, and ideally click on the link so you can listen to the podcast conversation. All those things that are formatted, you go to bringyourworth.tv and check them out. Just look up podcasts or just go through the episodes. All of those are formatted using Headliner. Really straightforward to use. It's completely in the browser. You notice a pattern here. I love that. Similar to riverside.fm. It's all in the browser. And then when new podcast episodes come out, like when you deliver a new episode, let's say you're like me, you deliver an episode every Wednesday and every Sunday, you get a notification email that'll say, hey, you just did another episode. It's Wednesday. You did another episode. Click on here, and then we got it formatted for you. It's ready to go. And then you just clean it up, and you can share it with your audience. Such a powerful tip. I think it's really important to streamline this as much as possible. Doing a regular podcast, video or otherwise, is hard. You see me sweating over here. I'm trying to give you as many tools as possible to streamline that. If you're going to succeed in this upcoming year, you got to get your systems in place, ideally before you launch your podcast. All right, another format, TubeBuddy. Big fan of theirs. I've been a TubeBuddy user for 2 years. I think on the professional level, I think it's called Legend, their highest level, for about a year when I started getting really serious about bringing your work.tv. Here's what TubeBuddy does. When you're working in YouTube, which you gotta get the tube part, when you're working in YouTube and you're uploading something, it'll recommend the best tags for it. Tags are similar to hashtags. If you know Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, or other things, tags on YouTube are similar to hashtags. So you have tags on there. It'll, if you put a title in there, such as all the podcast software you need, live Q&A, it will give a rating and say, here's how it rates compared to, this is how it will probably do compared to your other videos on your channel. And also, here are your so-called competitors, where if you do this episode with this title, when someone searches for podcast software, these are the other episodes from competitors that are going to show up in that list. Really important, because then I know I had one episode. I had one episode where instead of saying in the title, instead of saying emotional intelligence, which if you've been a fan of the show, you know I love Brene Brown's work and I've done a lot of things in emotional intelligence. But it's, to shorten it, you call it EQ. I did one episode and I said, level up your EQ, which makes sense. But then, even though I'm an audiophile, I'm really into music. You see John Coltrane back there. I didn't put it together until I started using TubeBuddy and doing some research where I was like, level up your EQ. What are the competing, search results? And it was like Gramophone magazine. And this is how you set up your amp. Old school folks know what an amp is. This is how you set up your amp. This is how you get the red and the blue wire in the back to fit. All these other things had to do with actual EQ levels as like an engineer with music. Because EQ stands for equilibrium. But it also equalizer. See? It stands for 15 different things. Not equilibrium. That's a different thing. It stands for equalizer. How you equalize the sound. Versus EQ in the modern sense of it, which means emotional intelligence, which is parallel to IQ, which is intelligence quotient, right? That's where EQ came from. Long story long, TubeBuddy was able to save me from that and be like, no, bro, you don't want to do EQ. Because if you do EQ, the only people that are going to be finding you are people that have speakers in the back of their car. Like, they're not going to rock with you like that. And the people that are interested in emotional intelligence, guilt and shame, Brene Brown, and those deeper subjects, they're not going to find you. So I changed my title. If you're going to have a video podcast, this is essential. They have a free version too. So, and the other one I'm going to recommend, which is called vidIQ, also has a free version, similar to Restream and StreamYard. The key thing here, though, is that if you have a video podcast that you're going to launch, yes, you absolutely need some type of tool like this, particularly if you're going to be on YouTube. But even if you're doing an audio podcast, if you're going to be promoting these things on different platforms, you need some way. Back in the day, we would call it SEO, right? Search engine optimization. There's like a new version of that, where you need some way for people to find your work. If you're going to be sharing snippets of your podcast on the different platforms, and then you're going to run with it. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a challenge with that. If you're able to take your audio podcast and then optimize it properly for the work that you're doing when you share it on different platforms, then your reach and your opportunities to get new listeners is way higher. So the stuff I'm talking about, you might start to tune out and be like, oh, that's for video. That's what I'm trying to get at. This is for all of us now. And even audio podcasts, the most successful ones, as you might know, the ones that can go by brand name, they're doing video too. Even if they're audio only, shout out to Seth Godin and other folks like that, they're doing video related things. So keep that in mind. It's important for everybody. A great competitor is vidIQ. My preference leans a little bit more towards TubeBuddy because I like their system a little bit more. vidIQ is interesting because the levels that you can go at are a lot higher. So if you go for their like super duper plan, you actually can work with a coach, like one-on-one, someone's talking to you, helping you with your channel. You get the particular insights with AI, way more than TubeBuddy, I would argue at this point. you get the insights with AI where they're like, hey, do this title, do that title. You want to do this title for this audience, or you want to do this topic for this audience? When we flip it, you can do it this particular way. There's a different type of energy with vidIQ. I actually have both of them, but I am only a pro with TubeBuddy. The reason why I'm emphasizing certain things here is because of the conversation, based on the framework of the conversation that I had with James. So check out part 1 of this, and also check out the conversation I had with James.
Welcome. I am James Oliver Jr., CEO of the Parentpreneur Foundation, where we empower Black parentpreneurs so they can leave a legacy for their beautiful Black children. And today I have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Damon Brown, who's going to help you figure out how to go from 0 to 20,000, almost 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. So let me read his bio very quickly, and then I'll bring Damon Brown up. So Damon helps side hustlers, solopreneurs, and other non-traditional creatives bloom. He co-founded a popular platonic connection app, Cuddler, and led it to acquisition within a year, all while being the primary caretaker of his infant first son, which is, that's just amazing, right? That's parentpreneur nirvana right there. He now guides others through his counseling, through his consulting, his Inc.com column, and public speaking on platforms like TED. Damon's latest book is Built From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World, the follow-up to Bring Your Worth, Level Up Your Creative Power, Value, and Service to the World. And his bestseller, The Ultimate Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, 76 Ways to Boost Time, Focus, and Productivity on Your Big Idea. What's up, Damon Brown?
What's going on? And I got my new book coming out, The Complete Bring Your Worth Collection. It's coming out October 20th. So, man. I'm excited to connect with y'all.
Man, yeah. You got more stuff going on than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, man.
I have to do TV right. Got to show the book. I'm working on my TV presence, Thank you for having me on. It's always good to connect with you, man.
Oh, my pleasure. So if you're listening out there, we're streaming live on YouTube, on Damon's YouTube show, Bring Your Worth.tv, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, all the places and spaces. If you're out there listening, you could drop in the comments. Let us know where you're listening right now. And also, get ready we'll save some time for questions. We'll try to get to the questions on the fly here. So if you have a question, just drop them in the comment section or whatever platform you're watching on, and we'll do our best to get to all of your questions. I can't wait to hear them. So Damon, look, man, you're doing all the things on YouTube. I've just been slowly watching you because you're, a beloved member of the Parentpreneur Foundation community.
Thank you.
And I've been watching you do your YouTube stuff for a couple of years now. I'm just like, man, you're killing it over there. And I know a lot of people who have tried to do YouTube unsuccessfully. Hey, Dana Fry, trying to do YouTube, trying to figure out how to make that thing work for them. So I said, why don't we just come and you could give people 3 tips to go from 0 to 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. So what's tip number 1, man? How do we do this thing?
Wow. My biggest lesson, it'll be a 3-year anniversary of Bring Your Worth.tv on the equinox, not this one coming up, but the one, the summer or winter solstice. So I think that's December 22nd, 23rd. It'll be 3 years. And the audience was relatively flat for like 2 years. I'm just going to keep it real with you. And
flat as in what?
It was flat as in, I had maybe 50 subscribers just on the strength. I did a TED Talk about 6, 7, 8 years ago now. It was a while ago now. And that's literally the only reason why I got YouTube. And so I wanted to just put my TED Talk up there. Because it was on the second stage of TED. TED has 2 different stages. It was on the second stage, so they don't put them up or promote them as much. And I was like, let me get that. And so I put up my own thing. And that's how it started like almost 10 years ago. So I had like 50 subscribers. My grandma, rest in peace, would subscribe, that kind of thing.
God bless Grandma. Grandma was good for that. You had 50 subscribers.
Yeah, she's right above me,
years?
actually. It's a picture of her right up there. What's that?
You had 50 subscribers on YouTube for 2 years?
Yeah, something like that.
And you kept going?
Yeah, it was 50, I want to say about a year ago. Because remember, it's 3 years. Let's work backwards.
So yeah, for 2 years. It's almost 3 years. Almost 2 years. You had
Yeah,
you have
probably.
50
Yeah,
subscribers
probably
max.
by my second anniversary, I probably had about maybe 600. So if you think about that, like, grinding it out and doing it for 2 years, and then what happened was a couple of different things. Number one, this is kind of the best tip. Let's try to stay focused on your tip here.
Okay.
The number one tip is that you're going to have a different audience than you actually do everywhere else. So I'm a best-selling author. I was on the second stage of the main TED conference, and I've done 3 TEDx talks. I had quite a few followers on Twitter before I left Twitter about a year ago. Like, I already have my so-called brand. When I went to YouTube, I was starting over again. And so no one had heard about my best-selling books. Nobody had seen me on the stage. No one knew me as a business coach. And so the number one thing, I think, is to realize you're going to be kind of starting over again. It's kind of like going from Twitter to Facebook to, say, TikTok, right? Like, you're kind of building it all over again. You might bring some people over, but each of those communities are very unique. If you go to bringingworth.tv, or if you go to youtube.com/BrownDamon, whatever works easier for you, there's a little tab that says community. You click on the community tab, and YouTube has its own social media. And so I'm able to interact with my 18,000 plus folks that subscribe every moment of the day when a new video comes out, even with my new book coming out in October. And so the number one rule is that you have to kind of treat it like another, I'm not big on social media, but almost like another social media platform where you're going to be starting over again. So no matter what success or cloud or whatever you have elsewhere, I mean, that's why it took me 2 years. I couldn't take this cloud from over here and dump it over there. So it's going to take a little while to kind of establish that in YouTube. I'd say that would be the number one tip.
Wow. So treat it differently. Understand you're starting over, and know that you could have 50 subscribers for almost 2 years.
Well, I did hit 600. So, I mean, I 10x technically, but it wasn't,
Well, I mean, look, after doing something for 2 years, 600, that's still not a lot. Right? I mean, that's not a lot,
No.
Let's be honest, right?
And
Hey,
I think it's also too that you have to be aware of whatever environment's happening there. So a middle-aged African-American man who's talking about entrepreneurship, talking about passive income, and how you can grow as a side hustle or a solopreneur or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. So I'm not like the hottest thing on the platform. I'm not the coolest person on TikTok.
You
by
weren't talking
far.
about crypto or NFTs or
I'm not right. Crypto's great. Just I don't talk about it.
Hot Club. You wouldn't
Right.
know
I'm not
that.
talking about crypto. I'm not doing pranks. You know what I mean? Like I'm not, a very young millennial or whatever that new generation is coming up. Like I'm not that. And so it took a while to kind of build up that steam too. But I would say I found that in all my vocations, even as far as the startup world and the startups that I was pursuing, VCs weren't, hurrying to call me back. But I knew what my communities needed, and that eventually led to the success of my last startup, Cuddler. But we were getting laughed at and misunderstood the whole way. And that's kind of, at least for me, that's kind of how it works. For a lot of people that I coach, that's how it works. Because, we're building for particular communities. I mean, James, you understand that. Like, you're building for specific communities, and everybody's going to get that wave. And so it might take a little bit longer, no matter what platform you're on, to get that community together. But once you do, though, I have people that really rock with me and look forward to the shows. So I'm thankful for that.
So what inspired you to keep going when you only had a few followers? Like, how did you push through that to keep going? Or was there something that you said, maybe I should try and do something differently? Like, what was that for you?
Yeah, I tried a few different things. I think my first approach is trusting that there was an audience for it. And I think that might be the strongest benefit you have. Like, if you're just starting a YouTube channel or even on another one of the video platforms, and you don't know if your audience is there, that makes it really hard. For me, again, I already got the best-selling books. I already do a lot of public speaking. I coach a lot of people, so I already know what I'm delivering has a place. So it's a matter of being patient enough for the particular technology, for that particular audience to notice what I'm trying to do, and that requires.
So how do you get them to notice you?
Time. Yeah, I'd say that would be the number one thing is time. When my channel really did the hockey stick, which was February this year of 2023, and I remember you have this app called the YouTube app, not the one that you watch YouTube on, but like it's called YouTube Studio, so you can as a creator. And I remember going to sleep. I usually turn my phone off except for my alarm, but I forgot to turn my phone off, and I woke up and I just kept on hearing buzzing and buzzing and buzzing, and a few of the videos that I did took off as in I had one day in February where I had 1.3 million views. And then if you think about 1% of those people subscribing, then it makes it really easy to understand how I got to where I'm at now. But it took that much persistence to do that, and I didn't hit that hockey stick until probably about 300 videos in.
And you're saying that just happened? There was nothing you did other than produce 300 videos? Like that's nothing?
Well, no, there's a little bit more than that. So it wasn't just luck. Persistence.
So what did you do before you went to bed that night that had your phone pinging like crazy?
What's that?
What did you do before you went to bed that night that had your phone pinging like crazy?
One of the videos took off, and
did you on its own? Did you do something?
I think I just improved, and so I think that's kind of the secret sauce I'm kind of implying that I think we tend to forget. My 350th video is going to happen this week. It's going to be way more better, way more better than my 250th episode that I did a year ago. So I'm actually improving as an editor, as a creator, as a host, as an orator. The stories I tell, I know what my community needs. The community section's way more popping now. So they're giving me feedback like, no, you got this fact wrong. It happened with this. No, I really want a video about this, but you talked about this. I want that instead. So it's almost like you have to look at like a curation, and you're becoming a better curator along the way. And to do that, you gotta, I mean, that's actually my tip number 2 that I written down. Is building up your catalog. Yeah, it's building up your catalog, which is number 2. Because what it comes down to is, number 1, you get better. But number 2, and this is probably the most important point that I have to share. You don't want to blow up when you have nothing to give. In other words, if I was on episode 1 back in December of 2020, and my video got 10 million views, then what? I would have no catalog. There'll be nothing else for people to watch. If I didn't have my businesses together, including all my books, my public speaking, my coaching and all that, there'll be nowhere for them to go. They were like, oh, that's a great video. And then they move on to the next thing. Again, when my stuff went hockey stick, I had about 300 episodes. And so now people are discovering through YouTube, sharing it with them because they know they like my hot videos, as well as just a pure catalog of it. Now they have 200, back then in February, they had 299 other things to watch. And so you actually don't want to go from 0 to 20K the first day. You actually don't want that.
Right.
And the next part about that, which we're kind of getting at, is that your videos in the beginning aren't going to be that great. And so now when people come in, I have more of a presence. My lighting's a little bit better. You know, I know how to organize things. My mic is stronger. I know how YouTube works. I know the vibes way more. So now when I get my next viral hit or my stuff goes like this again, then I'm ready. And I'm like, bet. There's 350 episodes for y'all to enjoy. Most of them are good.
Amazing.
You know what I mean?
So congratulations on your YouTube success, Damon. Not sure who the user is on LinkedIn. Sometimes LinkedIn doesn't always show the name, so apologize for that.
I know LinkedIn can be funny with the streaming.
Thank you for that. If you have questions, please drop them in the comment, and we will do our best to get to them for you. So that was your second tip, to just produce a lot of content, basically. And then So, do you feel like there's any similarities in that regard with like podcasting, or that's just like a totally different beast?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a lot of mentors and friends who are
There's
podcasters,
Jamila.
including yourself.
Hey, Jamila.
You know, shout out to you.
Say again. Sorry.
I said I have a lot of friends and mentors who are podcasters, including yourself.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of the folks that I've talked with who have been in the game for a long time, like they were podcasting well before the Joe Rogan era, talking like 15 years ago, back when you had to have an RSS feed and all that.
Yeah.
And they were saying the same thing that I've been sharing with y'all, where you don't want to launch a podcast with one episode.
Wait, let's see the shameless
like,
plug
great.
of this thing scrolling across the bottom of the screen there. Parents
There you go. Talk about it. Talk about it. You know, I have no problem with plugs, so do that thing.
I mean, listen,
Right?
in this Parentpreneur Foundation, if you're a parent and entrepreneur, you like to listen to podcasts, check out parentsmakingprofits.com, which just voted the number 10 podcast for entrepreneurship by FeedSpot. So there you go.
Ooh, those are numbers. That's hard too. It's hard. Yeah,
I don't
hard
know
to
how
do
we
that.
did that, but we're number 10.
Well, you know what I'm saying, but you kept showing up, right?
I don't know how that happened. So somebody was saying that
y'all have had
it's
the
similar
podcast for
before
a couple years, so you've been doing your thing.
So the Joe Rogan thing, they said, what about Joe Rogan?
No, I was saying it was well before the Joe Rogan era.
Yeah.
So the people that have been mentoring me have had podcasts for like 15 years.
Wow.
One of the things that they said is that you don't want to launch with one episode.
Right.
Right? I mean, you know the vibes with it. You don't launch.
No, we
with at
did. So
least
we had our
three.
trailer, and then we had 2 episodes that we launched with. So we had effectively like 3 things for people to listen to when we
Right.
launched.
Minimum of 3.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, that makes
kind of the
that
rule.
makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, exactly. And so so a lot of the game that I'm sharing now, a lot of things that got me here are actually from my friends and mentors in the podcasting world. That was one of the things that I learned, but it took a little while to learn it, was that with the environment now, you can look at YouTube not as a video platform, but as a video podcast platform, because people understand podcasts now. I've been rocking
Yeah,
with
that's
podcasts
interesting.
for-
We don't publish, we don't record video. We do our podcast, and we don't publish it on YouTube. I suppose that's a missed opportunity in terms of getting views or whatever, but we're not, that medium on its own would need to take off in order for us to be able to quote unquote monetize it, right? Because
Correct.
those views don't count towards the podcast download data, which is what drives sponsorship dollars over there. So it's just a totally different thing if we decided to do the video of that, which I don't honestly, because it's a lot of whole dog and pony show situation. I just don't have the time for or the inclination to do it even.
I mean, I
don't
know
know.
for some folks, just from my seat on the bus, I know some folks that only watch their podcasts. Like, they don't listen to the podcast, they just watch them. And so that's kind of the paradigm shift. Again, that's why I mentioned Joe Rogan. Like, that's kind of the paradigm shift that happened when the Spotify Joe Rogan thing happened. You know, I'm really big into media. My background is journalism. And so probably like 4 or 5 years ago, when the Joe Rogan deal happened, and with Spotify, everything shifted. And that's why when you go on YouTube, most people that have at least a really big podcast, again, the name brands like a Joe Rogan, they got video in there. And so even if you don't do it now, eventually things come to video. The same thing happened. I was just going to say the same thing happens with, I used to be a writer for The Source magazine, a lot of the hip hop magazines. And the same thing's happening with music, where a lot of the, like, my nieces and nephews, folks that are like 30 and younger, when they want a new song, they don't even go to Spotify per se. They go to YouTube. And
I
they
do
say,
that
let me-
sometimes too, not gonna lie.
Right? Thank you. So
Sometimes
I mean, so that's
I do that. But it depends
Yeah.
on where I am. If I'm in my car, I'm on my phone, boom, I go to Spotify. But if I'm
course.
sitting in my laptop, sometimes it's just easier to go to YouTube if I'm in the web browser. But if I'm already on Spotify, I'll just type it in on Spotify. So basically, you just got to be where people are.
that's the absolute bottom line. And really quickly, I'll give you a point where I took my my first business bestseller, The Vices Entrepreneur. It came out like 7 years ago. Again, it's included in the Complete Bring Your Worth collection. And I actually did AI graphics to learn more about AI using a thing called midjourney.ai. So started working with that. And then I used that to put images to the audiobook I had for the Bite-Sized Entrepreneur. And I shared it with my YouTube community. So now there's a book from like 7-8 years ago that was already a bestseller. Now it's gathering some dust. It's still selling, but it's not what it was. I'm flipping it using AI, and then I'm sharing it with this new community. And that's what I'm kind of getting at, where, again, back to point one, you're almost like building and reintroducing yourself again. And so there's certain products or ideas or services that you can share that I might have been rocking with that for a long time. But my YouTube community at BringYourWork.tv, they don't know what it is. You know?
Okay, so tip number one was understand that every medium's different.
Every audience is different. That's right.
Every audience is different. Tip number two is you got to have a bunch of content. You don't want to blow up before you have something for people to consume. And so what's tip number three?
Tip number three, and you kind of hinted at this, is you want to experiment with different formats. And as my journalism teachers used to say when it came to editing, you don't want to be too precious with your work. Sometimes what you're working isn't working. And so you need to recast it. You need to change it from third person to first person or whatever, when it comes to writing. I found the same thing when it comes to this medium. So my first major video is about Brene Brown and emotional intelligence. And it was about 6 months until I started getting really serious, around the time I started getting really serious with YouTube. So it's probably March or April of 2021. And I got about 10,000 views, which is a lot for me. And so I did more of that kind of content. I study a lot about emotional intelligence. I worked with my coaches through it, or the people I coach, I worked them through it. And so I did more of that. And there are a lot of other videos that did well, but not as quite as well as this one video. Then I started playing around with the shorts format, which is similar to TikTok or Instagram Reels, that kind of thing, where it's like 60 seconds or less. I started playing with that. It was almost exactly a year ago. So it was about a year ago I started playing with that. I started doing a short a day just to experiment with it. That was one of them. In February, one of the shorts ended up getting 10 million views. And it was a wrap. It's like, okay, that's where the hockey stick is right now. I'm still doing lots of different shorts, having fun with that. But now this month in September, every workday I'm going live at this exact time, 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going live with y'all to get your questions, to deal with certain topics as far as the startup world, as far as mental and emotional health, things of that nature, things that side hustlers and solopreneurs deal with. And then now I have certain lives where I'm connected with y'all, where a couple thousand of y'all have come through. That's a different vibe right now. So I think that's kind of the third tip, is to not say this is what my show is. Notice I keep calling it the show. It's not a YouTube channel, it's a show. So treat it like that. So it's like, all right, this season, I'm going live all September. Let's go. What do people want to talk about? The community down here, let's see what's going on. What do y'all want to hear? And that's going to be the vibe for this month. And there's certain people that have come in right now that were kind of on the sidelines that are getting more involved with the community I'm building at BringYourWork.tv because I'm going live every day. And so don't be afraid to like mix it up, change it up, go in different directions and see what works. Doesn't mean you have to throw away what does work. It just means don't be afraid to grow. And again, I'm approaching 3 years with BringYourWork.tv, so I'm sure the environment on YouTube is way different than it was in 2020. Yeah. And so embrace that change. You know what I mean?
So what's the biggest mistake you see creators make on YouTube?
Trying to go with the trend right now. That's across the board. You know me well enough. You know, I've talked about this. What I mean is that right now, what might be hot on YouTube is quick cuts and me jumping in my seat and doing this, whatever. On TikTok, it might be doing a dance with 4 penguins, which if you're on TikTok, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's cool. I love to dance and you should see me at karaoke. However, that is not the nature of my show. That's not my vibe. So I would focus on things, even if you get a little bit trendy, that's fine. Focus on those things that actually stand the test of time. Like this bookcase, this little blazer, this vibe, whatever.
Classic.
This doesn't go out of style.
Never.
Like this is my shirt. Like you can buy the shirt at damebrown.net. Never goes out of style.
Yeah.
Black shirt, whatever. It's super simple.
You're not chasing the shiny new objects, is what you're saying, basically.
Thank you. And it's hard to do. But and I know that might sound contradictory to trying new things.
It sounds boring too.
Exactly. But that's the thing. Even when you were saying,
if it's consistent, it doesn't matter, right?
Exactly. But that's exactly the point. They know, as far as the community, and even some of y'all that are watching, you know the vibes. If you're going to tune into me, I'm going to be talking about passive income. I'm going to talk about what's in your artist contracts, whether you're a creator or you're an entrepreneur. I'm going to talk about how you can build your startup while you got little kids screaming at home.
Oh, look at that substance. Not all the flash, but actual substance.
You're being too kind. But you understand what I'm trying to say. Like
I do.
Yeah.
I struggle with this sometimes, at least in my head. This is why I talk to my therapist. You know what I'm saying?
But I mean, we all have that problem. The problem is that consistency is boring. Like I'm not gonna blow smoke up, whatever. I'm gonna say, I was about 300 episodes in, and suddenly I went from about 900 subscribers in January to about 10,000 by Valentine's Day. That's what happened. But how did it happen? Well, the tips I talked about, but also I kept showing up for 299 episodes, and then suddenly, it's not magic. It's like consistency. This is what Damon and BringYourWorth.tv is about. I can trust that he's going to provide this substance. And I think that's what
basically evergreen. Look at this comment. Basically evergreen content, right? Exactly.
Evergreen, right?
Because what's hot with the jumping up and down today, like 6 months from now, you're going to be like, what is this foolishness?
Exactly. If it was a year ago, we'd be talking about AI. If it was the year before that, we'd be talking about crypto. If it was the year before that, we'd be talking about the pandemic. The year before that, we'd be talking about blogs and whatever. I talk about this all the time. Like I'm really big into media, so it's always the next wave. But how are you going to make a wave? How are you going to be consistent? If I were to be gone right now and my kids were to dig up my channel 10, 20 years from now, everything I talk about on the channel is still going to be relevant.
Wow.
It might be, a new TikTok instead of talking about TikTok, but it's the same vibe. That's what I want. I want that, like you said, evergreen content. Yeah. And that's apparently that's why I have the Bring Your Worth show, because I want to continue to support people even when the winds change. I want them to be able to say, I can count on Damon to give me the truth about what's happening,
All right. So that third tip was don't follow the fads is what the third tip was. So to summarize, the first tip was just understand each platform has a different audience. The second tip was make sure you have enough content, because you don't want to try to blow up if you don't have sufficient content. And honestly, it's not very likely to happen anyway, right? No. And the third tip was, stop chasing the squirrels and the shiny objects. Be consistent. He's building
while at the same time not being afraid to experiment a little bit. So
not being afraid to experiment. It's okay to try new things, but he's not going for the shiny squirrel type things. It's okay to try new things, because if the platform is going to be promoting shorts and you're still doing long form content, well, that's not necessarily smart if you want more people to see your stuff. If you don't care, that's fine, but you have to be open to changing as well. So those three tips basically is how Damon went from 0 to he's got almost 20,000 followers or subscribers on his YouTube channel now. You can go to BringYourWorth.tv over on YouTube. Pardon?
I said thank you.
Of course, bro. YouTube, he's at Brown Damon. He's a great guy. He's very anonymous.